What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Ramble. We're back with another Metroidvania today, and I hadn't heard of this one till I was offered a press key for it, but I've generally been enjoying myself with it, and it's got some especially visual elements to it that I think are gonna really make it memorable. So this is Cookie Cutter. I don't actually yet know where that name comes from. It kind of sounds like a cutesy kind of game. It ain't, trust me. No, not at all. So I haven't finished this yet. This is actually a fairly long game. It can be well over 10 hours. It's longer if you want 100% everything. So it's a pretty beefy title. This is made by a small team, apparently over, I believe they said 6 years. So they've been working at this for quite some time. And you can already see it's got a rather striking art style to it. So I'm going to jump into my existing game, but I'm sort of back in the starter area right now so that I don't tend to spoil too much. But yeah, here you go. So as you can see, it's all 2D, very sort of comic booky kind of thing. You got this very unique looking character, really gorgeous parallax backgrounds. Yeah, I said it. And just everything about this looks really good. It moves very smoothly. It's just a really nice overall experience. There is some voice acting in it, but only some. Most of it is actually not voice acted, which is a little weird when you have some of it done and some of it not. I don't know. I always find that kind of strange. But you know, there isn't a lot of dialogue in this, to be honest with you. And the story behind this is that this is a weird sort of comic booky dystopian future. This corporation ended up offering immortality to the populace. They basically said, hey, we've come up with a way to make people live forever by transforming you into robots. But in order to do that, the corporation then turned around and used that as an evil plot in order to enslave humanity. So that was basically the gist of it. And what's happening is your partner in this game was a scientist working for the corporation who decided to go against them, and actually created you in secret. So you're actually sort of one of these human android hybrid kind of things. She decided to create you in secret. You and her fell in love, and she got kidnapped by the evil people, and you were almost destroyed, and you're trying to rescue her. That's the basics of it. And as you can see, there's a number of different environments in the world here that you'll unlock as you go along. And as you can see, they look fairly extensive. Now, this is not a small world, without a doubt. It's a fairly big world, actually, that they've constructed here. But the map size is not as intimidating as you might think, because as you can kind of see here, things move pretty fast. Your character's default walk speed is pretty fast, and you traverse a lot of this map. Like, I'm just going to walk to the right here a couple times. You'll see here, you traverse a lot of this map very quickly. So as big as it is, and it is fairly large, charting out an entire area is not going to take you as long as you think. And it's going to get to the point where you're charting it quickly enough that you're not going to get bored. Now, this being a Metroidvania, there is a lot of backtracking and traveling back and forth to previous areas as you acquire new powers that give you the ability to explore things that you couldn't before. That's all pretty typical stuff, and I got no problem with that. I will say that there are teleporters in this. There's a decent amount of save points, so that's what these are. Those things, they're those little teddy bear things. But the teleporters, which are this gray thing here, they are quite spread out. So if you get into an area and you want to sort of fast travel around, it's not quite as easy to do that as maybe you'd like. But it hasn't really been a problem that much, because as I've unlocked different powers, there's been things in the current map that I've been in that I've been able to use them to find. And for the most part, if you want to go back to prior areas and use them, it's just to find extra things, not things that you need to progress, at least at this point. I've only kind of gotten lost in this game once, where I ended up having to look up a walkthrough, and it was basically because I just wasn't paying enough attention. So it was more on me. That's what happens when you try to play games like this when it's too late at night. So yeah, it's so there, as you can see, you're going through these environments, and there is a fair amount of combat. There is a lot of enemy variety in this. There's many different types of enemies with different traits and attacks, and some of them, some of the enemies actually have sort of bigger versions, I guess you'd say, like level 2 versions of the enemies, I guess you'd say, that I've been encountering as well in the stage of the game that I'm in. So the way combat works, you've kind of seen me doing some of it here, but you got your regular attack, you got a heavy attack, which is related to one of these heavy weapons that you will pick up throughout the course of the game. I only have 3 of them so far. And in addition to that, you have here a tertiary attack that you will unlock as you go as well. And by pressing the B button, the B button is sort of a stunner attack, I should say. Right trigger on the controller is what uses that secondary attack, and some of those you will need to trigger things in the environment in order to progress, to break down barriers, but they can all be used against enemies as well, which is nice. Some enemies will be better suited to some kinds of attacks than others. Also, the other nice thing is you can see there, oh look, I missed a little currency pickup. Also, the environment, any environment hazards that can hurt you can also hurt enemies, which is very nice. I appreciate that. And there are some attacks that are going to be required against certain enemies. There are some enemies you actually have to stun before you can hit them. Enemies do have a secondary bar under their health there, which is like a stamina meter. Also, when you get them down to a certain amount in health, you can do sort of a glory kill on them. These are graphic, and even though they repeat, there's 1 per enemy type, and even though they do repeat, they never really get old because they go fairly quick and they're all awesome. And you want to do those because those allow you to retrieve health and also energy effectively, which is what you use to drive your secondary attacks. So if you don't have any energy, you can't use your secondaries, and you'll get that back by doing these finishing moves. You can also press down on the D-pad to use some of that energy to heal yourself if you want. You know, so you want to be careful about that and be sort of paying attention to these various things. Stuff is marked on your map, which is nice. Key objectives and key things where you're going to need a certain power to unlock. So there's certain door types, for example, that you need to power up for. There's some things you need to collect. That's what that motorcycle icon is down there. I've actually just been given a mission to collect parts for that. So if you come across those, even if you can't access them due to a lacking power up, like for example, this here, I actually can access now using this, the educator as they call it, which I quite like. There we go. So because I have that, I can get in here now, and it does keep track of all that stuff for you. So you know, older school Metroidvanias, you know, used to be like, you know, hey, you got to remember where all this stuff goes. Yeah, this isn't like that, which is nice. I appreciate that. This is definitely a platforming puzzle here. Oh, that's gnarly. So yeah, it's a lot of the standard Metroidvania tropes. The combat is fairly fast paced, as you can see. The one thing that kind of surprised me, though it doesn't really bother me, is there's no combo system in it. I guess we've just sort of been conditioned to expect those in combat games that have this kind of combat, right? And you don't have that, so there's no benefits to hitting enemies in rapid succession. There are combos, but you don't want to hit enemies in rapid succession anyway. So, or you do want to hit enemies in rapid succession, but there's no necessarily benefits to that other than getting in more hits on them. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back here later because I don't know how to time that out, but that's okay. Yeah, and as I said, this is actually a fairly chunky game. I believe it can be north of 10 hours. I put, I think about 5.5 to 6 into it so far, and I still have multiple weapons to unlock and multiple environments that I have yet to find. So that's pretty cool. I think it, you know, it's for an indie title, it's actually got the heft of some, you know, commercial or you know, larger studio Metroidvanias that you'd see. So I think that's pretty neat. And I just love this sort of edgy comic book look that it has going on. The art style in this is really what stands out the most. The Metroidvania mechanics are generally nothing new. They're not bad either, far from it. It's actually fairly well constructed in that regard, but the art style and the unique universe, which, like I said, is very comic booky in nature. The whole you know, dystopian future where immortality was promised, but really that was just a vehicle to enslave people is kind of cool. And it's, you know, proper cyberpunk dystopia, you know, if you want to do it, if you want to do it right, you know. And I think they've done a really good job here. Some, you know, I've seen a few people who say they don't really like this character, they don't like the look of her, and they don't like the fact that she's very edgy and like has kind of a, you know, is the bad attitude, doesn't take crap from anybody thing. And well, you know, some people just don't like characters that don't look like supermodels, I guess. I think the character's fine. Yeah, she's a little edgy at times, but you know, that's because she got basically nearly killed by the evil corporation who's enslaving everybody and took the only person she ever loved. So, you know, I'd probably be a bit pissed too, you know. So I actually enjoy it overall. The only thing I will say is you haven't seen me, so this game does have a parry system, which you haven't seen me utilizing very often. And look, I am the first to admit, and people who've watched me play games on live streams that have a parry system know, the parry systems and I don't traditionally get along. I'm just not good at it. I just don't have the good enough timing, which is funny because I'm actually half decent at rhythm games. So, but I guess it's a different kind of timing. But I will say that to me, the parry system in this game it doesn't feel great. They've actually already, the first hotfix in this game, they actually tweaked the parry timings because some people were saying they were too precise. I honestly think they are still too precise. I've done parries that seem to be done exactly the same way multiple times, and 2/3 of the time I find they won't count. I think it still needs a little bit, given that the combat in this is, while not, I would say, overly challenging in most cases, can still be a half decent challenge. I find that parry system just makes things way too frustrating and difficult, to the point where I really don't use it. But that really is the only way to stun enemies outside of getting them down to near dead. So I probably have sort of handicapped the speed of my progression a little bit by doing that, but that's just the way I feel about it. I still think that should be tweaked up a little bit. There haven't been so far many boss level creatures in the game. One was in this room. You don't have to fight bosses again once you've already beaten them once. But I found that yeah, there haven't been a lot of boss enemies. There are a lot of combat challenge rooms where basically you'll go inside a room and it will lock the doors and you have to fight multiple waves of enemies at once, lower level enemies, but in quantity that makes them challenging. That seems to be what this game is more into than boss encounters, unless it backloads a bunch of the bosses to the latter parts of the game. Which might, I don't know, but I haven't run into too many of them so far. Some people will probably be disappointed by that. It doesn't bother me especially. I don't mind bosses in games, especially well-designed, well-made bosses. But as I've been playing through this, I haven't been going like, oh man, I wish I had more of those. You know, the sprinkled combat challenge rooms throughout have been fairly challenging in their own way. And the few boss enemies that I have fought, they're really just really amped up standard enemies. That's been more my experience. And I haven't really been, there's a couple of things I missed here. You actually don't get you get double jump in this game fairly early, but you don't start with it. So I have a feeling that I've just missed a couple of things. Now that I do have a power up to get through that, but only from the top down. But it looks like you have to go bottom up with that one. So that's probably another thing I'm going to level up later. So it does that Metroidvania tease kind of thing where you don't start the game with a lot of abilities that it takes away like in traditional Metroid games, but the map is always teasing you just enough to be like, hey, you see that thing? You can't get it yet, but you're going to be able to soon. Don't you worry. And they do that very well. They know how to design a map really well for that kind of thing. And like I said, these levels are pretty large. Like there's actually several things in here. Looking at this is an older area. And there are several things in here right now that I couldn't get before because I didn't have powers to, and now I do. So I'm gonna come back to this map and probably go through it. You don't need all this stuff again, you know, it's not required, but The other thing that's very helpful as well is you can pick up all kinds of items which can be used to purchase upgrades sort of back at the home base area. You also have this, which is what's called components. So you can buy components as well, and you can level these up, and you'll find energy cells throughout the game. Now, in a Metroid game, energy tanks mean more life. They don't in this one. What they do is they give you more, the ability to use more of these upgrades at a time. So you can see I have HP enhancer. Void is what your energy is called. So you can have void regeneration. You can have the ability to do double uppercuts. You can just do more damage. You can have more health and void drop from brutalized enemies, which is that sort of glory kill thing. And yeah, if you're willing to put in the time and find all these components, you can level yourself up and make yourself more powerful, which will obviously make the late game easier. I will say that in the levels that I'm in now, even some of the lighter enemies are posing a half decent challenge at times. And the last couple of combat rooms I did were quite ball busters. They definitely took some work. So having those upgrades would definitely make it doable. But I also think they designed the combat in such a way that you don't have to. You know, it will be harder in the end if you don't get all the stuff. But it's definitely not going to be required in order to beat the game. And you're not going to have to be like an esports level player in order to do that, which is nice. But yeah, as Metroidvanias go, I think this is a good one. I really love the style of it. That's the biggest draw for me to it. That's what attracted me to this game initially, was the really impressive art style. And you know, just the weird world that they created here, this sort of dark comic book world. I'm here for it. I think it's a very interesting setting, and you know, cyberpunk is a thing now, and trust me, as a cyberpunk fan, I'm very happy about that. But there's more to cyberpunk than just, you know, neon and corporate billboards on office buildings. You know, there's different types of ways to present that type of a universe, and they've done that here, which I really enjoy. And if you do like Metroidvanias, this one isn't overly as hard as some of the other ones, but it does have that sense of exploration, discovery, and constantly drip feeding you rewards that I think people who are into this genre will appreciate. I've certainly been enjoying it. This is a game I do intend to finish after the video. I don't know how much further I have to go, but I have found myself spending a good chunk of time on this and not realizing how much has passed. And well, you know, I think that's always the hallmark of a good game, when you're playing it and you don't realize how much time has passed. But I've been enjoying it a lot, and I think this is a very late 2023 release, but going into 2024, I think this could be a good indie to start your year off with if you're not sure what you're into at the moment. So yeah, that is Cookie Cutter. It's out now. Like I said, I've really been enjoying it. If you like cyberpunk and Metroidvanias, and if you really like new and unique styles and presentations, then this one's definitely something to check out. And it's fairly meaty, so for the price, you're going to get a lot of playtime out of it, especially if you want 100% it, which is always nice. Thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you like what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things. Those do help the channel out a great deal. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, does this interest you? What do you think of this style and character? What other cool settings do you think there would be for a Metroidvania? And what Metroidvanias are out now that you like as well? There's been a bunch of them. This is another genre that's sort of got a lot of momentum, and I'd like to know what other entries are in it that interest you. And you can also follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. We're going to be focusing on retro stuff there for the next while, tackling what I call my deep backlog, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and we have a great community there that I'd love to see be a part of. Thanks again all, and I'll see you on the next Indie Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.